when we go out and talk. Oh, sorry. Part of the work that we do when we go out and talk to businesses is around the workforce development planning, is about how to retain staff, and not only to retain staff, but also how to attract staff to the business. And one of the common themes that come up with a lot of our businesses when we talk to them is about, well, they don't really have a proper mentoring program or a proper staff appraisal, approaching, or structural framework. And this is particularly true of all the amazing SMEs that we work with in the region. So we wanted to do a sort of short workshop on the benefits, but also how to set up a mentoring program in your business. And so May, who I've sort of seen quite a few times, speak quite a few times in other presentations, I invited her to come along because she just does such a good job of doing this on a large scale basis. She does this across huge businesses. But I gave her the challenge of trying to put something together that would support SMEs to do this in the region. And this is just really today is just the start. It's just the toe in the water for you all, really. But then we're here, and all of my business skills advisors are here as well. We've got Lizzie Lyons on the call, Barry Tugwood, Julia Gurr, and Claire Bedding. My skills advisors are here to also pick up with you afterwards and support you if you'd like to come on to the programme. Can we just move on to the next slide, Lucy? Sorry. So I've done the overview of the workforce future. The only bit that I will go on to, if we go on to the next one, Lucy, sorry, is the different areas of workforce of future. So if you keep on clicking, Lucy, some circles will come up. So we're the one at the beginning, we're workforce development planning. So we go out with a business and we spend quite a lot of time, up to 30 hours with a business over the next few years, to support them with their workforce development planning. And we go through a whole sort of program with you on that. Via that, we would then pass you on to other partners who would be able to support you with training, digital skills development. You are running a digital skills development program. Passing you on to training providers and ITPs, independent training providers that can help you with apprenticeships, interns, or work placements. And there's also some support around talent retention. If you're in a difficult position and facing redundancies, there's also support around that. And basically, we spend the time hand-holding you through all of this so that you help to either pivot your business, stabilize it, obviously, at the moment, and then look at how you can sustainably grow that business. And we're also looking at things through this like equality, diversity, and sustainability as well. So those run as golden threads through the program. So if we go on to the next slide, Lucy. So workforce development, these are things that we look at with you. If you just carry on clicking through those, Lucy, we look at building capacity and capability in your business. So business recovery at the moment, obviously rebuilding and realigning to maybe your new products or services or way of working. We're looking at staff retention, as well as recruitment if roles have changed or there's a need for change in your business in terms of the types of skills or staff that you have. But it might be also about upskilling those staff or retraining them. And then through the programme, we're also looking to inspire and support you and create a legacy so that, we can just move away from your business and you've got the support in there, the capacity and the networks to continue the work. And this programme, this workshop this morning, is sort of a step towards that in terms of setting up a mentoring programme. So what do we want to achieve from today? We want to leave you feeling confident to start on the journey of setting up a mentoring programme in your business. We want you to understand, really understand the benefits of it, because there are lots of benefits, and hopefully come away with some useful tips to start your journey. So on that note, so thank you again for joining us. I'll hand over to May Wong. Thank you, May.
Thank you very much, Nikki. That was a lovely introduction to the program, and it's looking spectacular, really. So morning, everyone. My name is May Wong. I'm an employee experience and organizational learning partner. That's not a mouthful at all. With Esther Group UK. We're an award-winning housing association. But today I'm here to speak to you about mentoring programs, and most of my experience in building and running mentoring programs were with larger organizations here in the Southwest, really. I would like to say what I'll be sharing today is really based on my own humble personal experience, and I welcome queries and sharing from you, especially from those who might have had experience in this area as well. It is a sharing session, and we're all just here to kind of learn and grow together, really. So could we have the next slide, please, Lucy? Thank you very much. I know Nikki's kind of mentioned a few things about what we're hoping you would get from the session today, but I would like to very much hear from you as well. So if you could do me a favor, either go into the chat, which is kind of at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a speech bubble. If you click on that, it brings up the whole chat bit up. Or you could have a really nice scribble on this empty slide right here. Go up to the view options. If you hover your mouse at the top, there's a view options. If you click on that, there is an annotate option, and then you get to write what you want on this blank canvas over here. What I would like you to do is tell me, from your perspective, what you would like to get from the session. Just one main thing you would like to get from the session. Why are you here today? I see that someone's put a lovely heart shape in there. That's really encouraging. Thank you very much. That's a really, you would like to get some, hopefully some love. Honestly, I have poured all my love into the session today, if that's any reassurance to anyone, right? I see some chats coming in already. A structured approach, fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. I'm thinking we will be able to share that with you. There is a bit of structure that I've put in here. Framework, okay, that ties in really nicely with the comment about having a structured approach. Fantastic. Insights, right? You know what, Peter, if you know loads, then I doubt there'll be loads of insights, but otherwise I'm hoping you get some little golden nuggets here and there, if there are little gaps in what you look at. So Richard, you go, I've worked for a company that does not like structure, so non-structured approach for me. Right, the whole basis of a mentoring program is to actually put something in so that other people can kind of benefit from a more standardized approach, really. So yeah, that's a really interesting point, Richard. We might kind of look at that later. Mentoring program, looking for guidance, brilliant, right? I'm seeing what's appearing on screen here as well. Inspiration, okay. To support young staff and new starters, fantastic. Yep, so some of the programs I've run, definitely with this mentoring programs, a lot of them are very much catered to new starters or those who are really new to the workplace as well, right? So like new apprentices, and I think quite a few of you might actually have taken someone from or are looking to take someone from the Kickstart program. What do they have to learn? It's not just functional skills, is it? It's about navigating the whole workplace as well. Okay, supporting your staff, absolutely. That's a really key point as well. New tools, benefits. Yeah, we've got loads of benefits for you. Don't you worry. New tools. Okay. Sarah, that's so lovely. You mentor interns and you love it. See, that's a really fantastic benefit right there, everyone. I would say, and we'll cover some of this when we go into the session today, that you might get barriers, right? You might get people who are against mentoring. We'll talk a bit about how you can bring them over to the light side. I don't really want to say the dark side. so ideas to help set up a workable mentoring program, how to begin, and dealing with unconscious bias. That's a very interesting point you've put there, Vicky. Okay, lovely. Persuading SMT. Okay, fantastic. We will. When we talk about benefits, we'll be talking to you about, how do you get that buy-in? Not just from senior leaders, but also from the people who will be mentoring and the people who will be mentees as well. It's really vital to get buy-in from kind of all levels, really. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for sharing. That's really useful. Really good to see, kind of what you're keen on in the session today. Fantastic. Okay, so could we go on to the outcomes? That's perfect. Thank you, Lucy. So what I'm looking to cover with you in the session today, which then hopefully addresses all of the stuff you've just thrown up, is we're going to first and foremost, let's talk about what mentoring is, because I want us all to be really on the same page about our understanding on mentoring before we even crack on any further with the session, okay? Because I know there are people who kind of go, okay, what's that term exactly? And if you go on Google, if you go and look up terms, coaching and mentoring very often get mixed up as well. So let's kind of, go into exactly what mentoring is, and then we'll talk about the benefits, right? So some of you put in that you wanted to really get the benefits, understand that. We'll talk about why mentoring is beneficial for individuals, but we'll also talk about why it could potentially be a really valuable tool for your organization, in growing your organization as well. And then last but not least, what quite a few of you have put in, we'll talk about the how to. We'll talk about, right, what is the step-by-step process in starting up a program, and how do you kind of keep that sustainability going as well. Okay, fantastic. I would like to say that I will try to answer everything that you've thrown in, but we do have limited time today, and some, each of these bits here we could easily take hours exploring it. To be honest, I'm really passionate about this thing, so I could speak to you for hours, and we could have a lovely conversation around each topic. So we'll see how we get on. Hopefully, it will kind of address everything you've thrown in so far. I am also aware that there are varying levels of experience among you, right? Because you all did a bit of a survey before coming here today. And I see that some of you, and we've seen in the chats as well, some of you have mentoring programs in place or have run mentoring programs, but a large number of you have not set up mentoring programs. You might have been a participant in a mentoring program before. So it's always useful to kind of use that experience. But because there's varying levels, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the basics. Absolutely, right? For those who've not explored this area, and for those of you who are a bit more experienced in this area, hopefully those bits that we explore will be good refresher points for you, and a good way to review and reflect your current practices with your mentoring program as well. So hopefully it will kind of fit everyone's needs, really. Okay, right. Before we jump in, I want to ask you a really quick question. Could I implore you to have a think of one person who has been crucial, really crucial in shaping you into this wonderful person that you are today, someone you've learned a lot from, okay? So you are this beautiful, shapely vessel that we see here. I'm so sorry for all this pottery bits, but I was into the great pottery throwdown. So I took my inspiration from that. But you're this beautiful, shapely vessel. Think of one person who played a part in helping to create this lovely thing of beauty that you are. Okay. Close your eyes if you have to. But once you've thought of someone, could you do me a favor and put your virtual thumbs up? We've also got some people putting that into chat. That's fantastic. Your dad, your father, that's fantastic. Could you put your virtual hands up for me? How you do that is you go to the bottom of the screen and there's reactions, right? There's reactions. So you could pick whichever you want. Thumbs up, hands waving, heart shape, the laughter, crying, laughter face, a celebration emoji. Put your hands up once you've thought of someone. Yeah, that as well. That's fantastic. An art teacher. That's very interesting, Nikki. Yes, brilliant. Okay, so I see loads of you have put your hands up. Thank you. And also lots of you have actually put into the chat. And thank you so much for sharing who you've thought of as well. I didn't want to kind of push it in case people didn't want to say, but it's so lovely to see some of that come up as well. So I think it goes without a doubt that all of us can say that, there have been people who've played a part in shaping us into who we are today. We've learned from them. And that's where I want to say, actually, congratulations, you've all effectively been mentored, and the fact that you're all these beautiful vessels, that's proof of the benefits of mentoring. So I've done the what and the why. It's all sorted. My job is done. I can go now, right? So but that was just a really quick fire example to kind of say that's the what, that's the why. Whether we know it or not, we have all been mentored by various people through our lives, whether it's and it's just a matter of learning from somebody based on them having more experience than you, and whether that's work or life. Some of you might be baking aficionados, going to sign up for the next Great British Bake Off, as an applicant. Some of you might be real proper surfers. We're in the Southwest, aren't we? I cannot not mention surfing. Some of you might be amazing at that musical instrument environment, you might be in a band, you might be doing gigs. You've all learned from someone. And Nikki, you mentioned art as well. So much to paint here, beautiful nature we've got around us. But as long as someone has played that part in helping you to navigate, through life, through the workplace, through picking up a skill, you have effectively been mentored. And that brings me to my definition. That's effectively the definition of mentoring. But we're here today to talk about mentoring in the business, mentoring in the workplace. So Lucy's really kindly put up here now a definition. So I would like for you to just really quickly read through that definition now. So mentoring in the workplace, it's a relationship where a more experienced colleague shares their greater knowledge to with a less experienced colleague, really. So that's what it means in the workplace. It's effectively what I've just said. But if we could click onto the next bit, it is someone who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and they're sharing their experience with someone else. So that's pretty much it. And I hope we're all kind of on that same page with mentoring. Now, some of you might have that question of, okay, but what's coaching then? Don't worry too much about that. I just want us to be clear about mentoring. Coaching is more about, where mentoring, the mentor shares experience. Coaching is more about teasing out the potential from someone by asking them questions and getting them to explore the solutions themselves. That's the main difference. If you wanted to kind of get that definition, well, that's why it is in my mind anyway. Okay, so it's really clear in my mind what that difference is. I would like to put a reminder out that good mentors understand that the goal isn't to create another version or a little mini me of themselves. It is to recognize their mentees' unique interests, strengths, development needs, and then help to guide them towards their individual goals. Okay, so that's the what done. Any questions from anyone? And I would like to say, as we go through this as well, Nikki was saying earlier, we'll keep a watch on the chat. So if little questions pop up for you, please feel free to just throw that in. I want this to be a really beneficial session for all of us. So if you do have burning questions, please feel free to throw that in as well. Okay. Okay, no questions coming in on the what. So we're all clear. We're all on the same page. Brilliant. Let's move on to the why then, shall we? Let's talk about the why. Let's talk about the benefits. Why is mentoring important to the workplace? But as usual, I'm going to make you kind of work for it a bit. So we're going to start off with a little quiz, shall we? Let's just start off with a quiz. Right, perfect. So Lucy, could you throw up the first poll here for people to throw in their answers? Right. I would like you to just answer question 1 for now, if that's okay. So do you think millennials, that's kind of, the latest generation, isn't it? All these people who have phones and iPads just glued to their hands. So do millennials deem mentoring critical to their success? Yes, no, or maybe. Could you kindly vote on that? Put in your answers for that. Let's see that start to come in now. Some people have jumped ahead as well. So yeah, okay, how many Fortune 500 companies have mentoring programs? And then there is a third question as well. What is the benefit that has been seen from mentoring program? A concrete benefit that we've seen come out from mentoring programs. Yeah, so feel free to put your answers in for all the 3 questions now, since everyone's very enthusiastic. We've all gone in and started answering all questions. Amazing, all of you. Okay, I'm just going to give it a few more seconds for people to carry on voting, because we've got roughly about 15 of you, 14, 15 of you have put that in, and we've got I think about maybe 10 more people that we want to see from with the answers. So I'm just going to give it another few seconds. Okay, it looks like it's kind of died down a bit, so let's have a look. So most of you have put in a yes to that. Some of you have put in a maybe, so that's fantastic. So that is actually correct. Like it is a yes to that. The answer, okay. More accurately, 75% of millennials in a sample group of 1,000 employees in an organization attested to mentors actually being really critical to their success in the workplace. And we know that this can be a really tough group to impress. So it's a really great statistic to see, actually. Right, how many Fortune 500 companies have mentoring programs? So let's have a look. I would say, we are tied in the 71, 89%. What I like to see is that you've all picked the higher numbers. So that's great because you're on the right path there. And I would say, I would give it to you. You are correct as well. The actual number is 71% of Fortune 500 corporations. Just really quickly, in case anyone's wondering, I think all of you know anyway, but Fortune 500 does an annual ranking. It's an annual ranking of the top 500 corporations worldwide measured by revenue. So 71% equates to about 355 out of 500 companies who actually have established mentoring programs. And I wouldn't be surprised if that number's gone up over the years as well. This poll isn't kind of like the most recent kind of number that we've managed to get. So I would think that number would have gone up as well. And what's a benefit seen from mentoring programs? Speaking of millennials, you would love to hear some advice on how to mentor people from different generations. Yeah, that's a lovely one. Thanks, Katie. So what's the benefit seen? Increased retention rates, that's the main one. And that actually ties into what some of you actually put into your pre-survey as well. I'm really, really pleased to say you've got that right. But for everyone who's put in satisfaction or commitment as well, you've all got that right. So what clever cookies you are, if some of you actually put all three in, then you are, well on your way to success, because all three of them are proven benefits that have come out. Their numbers, they are fixed, good firm numbers coming out from mentoring programs on that. So fantastic. You're all stars. Thank you very much. If we could just stop sharing the poll now, Lucy, that's amazing. I love how you got that up, and that's fantastic. Okay. Could we move on to the next slide then, please? Okay, so the case study I talked about earlier, as you can see in the middle right there, it says a business case study was conducted by university researchers of more than 1,000 employees in an organization over a 5-year period. They looked at loads and loads of variables, but what it boils down to, look at the top half of that poster for me, would you? What that's saying, if you look at all those stats, is that mentoring, mentors are a critical influence to the start of a journey and to actually boost growth for anyone, for any individual. You see that, you've got that right, millennials deem it critical, but you also see lots of people who are more at the senior level crediting their mentors for helping them to get to where they are today. So mentoring is a really great way to actually help to, grow and develop the people in your organization. If I could bring you to the bottom half of that poster now, what that's talking about is what this translates to in terms of outcomes for the business. So some of you were saying, how do I persuade SMT? Bam, look at this. These are firm numbers. These are top, business level priority numbers. Lots have seen salary grade increases, which kind of then tie into promotions as well, we can say, can't we? And then, retention rates averaging 70%, not just for mentees, but for mentors as well. So, and then all of these numbers were compared to those who didn't take part in the program, right? And we've thrown this quote in by Nelson Mandela. If you read through this quote, this is targeted towards a mentor, isn't it? It's talking about making that difference to someone's life. And why I keep bringing this up is because I know some of you might have resistance in your organization of people, wanting to be a mentor. So I'm trying to kind of really sell some of these benefits of why mentoring doesn't just benefit mentees, it benefits mentors as well. It is very, very much beneficial to both the groups of people. And I think a lot of people don't see that. But people who have become mentors and been through a mentoring program can then vouch for it. So next slide, please, Lucy. I would like to summarize the business impact, okay? So for those of you who say, how do we convince SMT? Let's have a look at this, shall we? And as I run through all of this, I want you to think about the fact that all of these points cover not just mentees, they cover mentors as well. Okay, so it's another way for you to kind of sell this to the mentors and also to your senior management team. So let's have a really quick look, shall we? So the first one on the top left-hand side, your mentee has a go-to person in the organization. Your mentor gets purpose and satisfaction from helping their mentee. So a positive environment is created And this means there's increased job satisfaction. A higher level of job satisfaction is usually associated with increased commitment and engagement to the organization. All of this stuff then leads on to that next bit in the beehive, which is what? Improve retention rates. The happier and the more engaged people are, there's no arguing that, the more likely they are to stay with your organization, really. So all of that, just really ties in really nicely. And then I want to bring you to the center of that beehive, promoting personal and professional development. It's obvious that the main improvement is to an individual's, development, isn't it? That's what mentoring is all about. But it's learning two ways. Yeah, it's the mentee and the mentor, kind of learning from each other. What this does deeper down is it creates that individual feeling that the organization values your development and your well-being, and this adds on to that psychological contract and the commitment a person feels for an organization. So there's the nice kind of underlying kind of bit there to it as well. Okay, creating a learning culture. So by building your mentoring program internally, you're creating a culture that actually values learning and development. Employees feel that their future is being invested in because they're paired with someone who can guide them. You're creating a safe place for both mentors and mentees. So for employees to learn from each other, they're comfortable, it makes them more comfortable taking risks, making mistakes, because then they understand they should constantly be learning and experimenting and adapting and growing together. Now, what this does as well then is that it feeds into a culture of innovation because people are learning, and there is a good environment to that encourages that learning. And then you see a little side effect there. I want to bring you into internal knowledge transfer. They're sharing with each other. That's really useful for, what do you think that's really useful for when there's internal knowledge sharing, between departments or even within departments? What do you think that does? Just really quickly, shout it out or throw it into the chat. Anything come up in the chat so far? Yes, it's possible to get a copy of the slides.
Yeah, there's something. Yeah, someone's asking about getting the slides.
Okay, yeah, okay, no worries. Okay,
collaboration, someone said.
Yay, fantastic. Yes.
Better communication, Sarah said, and collaboration.
Perfect. Okay, you're right. So it all has this sort of side effect, doesn't it? That internal knowledge transfer between each other. You've got better communication, better collaboration. I've seen some, yep, Peter, absolutely. And what does this do? So I'm just trying to bring this back to the business impact again. Let's talk about succession planning. Sometimes when you pair people with mentors from a different area, then those mentors are more aware of these employees, aren't they? And they're like, oh my God, this is a great talent. So for succession planning, the fact that this person learns more about a different area, or that a leader from a different area knows about this person, it just really helps to build that network of teams, doesn't it? It helps people to kind of go, oh, hang on a minute, someone's leaving. I know someone else who might be perfect for that role. So succession, key. Also, if you have people leaving the organization, if you don't do things like that, there's always like a skills gap, isn't there? So when you kind of have that knowledge sharing, you get more of that retention of knowledge. So that's that bit around internal knowledge transfer. Now, reduction in stress and anxiety in someone's well-being, right? This is quite key to mentoring as well. And very often when we get a mentor for someone, it usually needs to be someone who is not necessarily the line manager or someone in the team, because what if they're having issues with the team member or with the line manager, then they don't have someone outside of that they can speak to. So a lot of the time we try to pair people with someone who's kind of a bit removed from that process, so that if someone's got issues they're facing, whether it's with their manager or whether it's with a team member or just anything else, they've got that safe space to go to for guidance, no matter what the issue. So knowing a mentor is always there to lend an ear can really help to kind of reduce stress, put an employee at ease as well. Okay. And last but not least, and I saved the best for last, to be honest, guys, right? All of the stuff that you see here can be achieved with minimal cost. Why? Right? Because you're using existing resource. You're just, all you've got to do, and I saw some of you put into the pre-survey or lack of time, all of that stuff. invest some of that time to just, have a think about how you want to build this. But once you've done that, and you kind of help to take care of the people on the program, you're using existing resource, but you're creating all of these results, all of these business results and benefits. There's so much ongoing two-way learning. And I just want to say to you, there was a study that was done on various training methods used. Yeah, so you've got classroom training, you've got like some people maybe shadowing and so on. Coaching and mentoring were rated as the most effective methods of learning. So I'm not kidding you here. You do get loads of stuff. So, hopefully this will help to bowl over and win over your senior management team. But I would like you to think about these benefits, and like I said before, how this applies to mentee and mentor. And when you try to win them over as well, see what rolls out of this top level benefits that you can then tie in to what works for each individual. Okay. Any questions on this? Because we've now effectively finished the why. We've talked about the benefits. Those of you who said that you're here to kind of, understand more about the benefits, has this kind of hit the mark for you? Later on, I will go through a bit more on what a mentor gets from it and what a mentee gets from it as well, as we talk about the steps in the process. Anything? Are we all still here as well? Is everyone still happy to kind of crack on? I see, sorry, I've got the chat blocking all your lovely faces. I see some nodding faces. I see thumbs ups there. So, okay, this is all good. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Vicky. That's
Everyone's saying
great.
all good. All good.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then shall we just move on then? Let's get to the what I think a lot of people might be here for today. Let's talk a bit more about the how. How do we build and implement our mentor programs for success? So I want to say, because I saw in some of the pre-survey bits like, oh, we can't do it virtually anymore. I do admit it's difficult to do mentoring if you're showing someone a skill, like say, in Southwest Water, where I was from before, there was a lot of mentoring going on with people going out and clearing pipes and things like that. It's really difficult to kind of do it with social distancing and some of the lockdown restrictions we've had, but now things are lifting up. So hopefully some of those things, fingers crossed, are going to be possible for you to implement once we get back to normal again, whatever that new normal might be. But it is still possible to kind of shadow someone, keep that distance, have a look at that kind of physical part of it. But if a lot of you, it's kind of more a mental kind of transfer. All of you are on Zoom. All of you have been using the tools fantastically this morning. So there's nothing to stop us from having this program work extremely well in a virtual setting as well. In fact, some people have said that they actually feel more comfortable opening up to mentors, or even mentors, the reverse, because they are in a comfortable space. They're not kind of like feeling a bit jumpy in like an open environment, because some of your offices, you don't know, you might not have like a private area or so on. It can be easier doing it virtually. Yeah, you do not have to travel great distances. Exactly what we do with some of the mentoring programs we've got now is, let's just have a virtual cuppa. All right, go make your cuppa. Oh, what beverage are you having? La la la. And then you get into that, half an hour mentoring session. So it in a way, it could be really beneficial. It could be the silver lining in that cloud, really. Okay. So right, before I talk through the steps, I would like to share in more detail some of the mentoring, like a couple of the mentoring programs I've done. So I've done more than that, but I'm just cherry picking one or two right now to share with you. And I'll use this as examples to reference to when we walk through the steps later. Okay. No worries. Okay. Yeah. So right, let's just crack on then with the next slide. So one of the mentoring programs I had to put in place was for my previous organization, but it was a very ambitious one. They weren't just asking for one area. We had lots and lots of pockets, little talent pools around the business that they wanted, mentors to be paired up with. So what I did at the end of the day was like, okay, how do we make this something that's consistent? So we had some consistent elements throughout. I prepared a roadmap. Yeah, a mentoring roadmap, so to speak. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you've got if a lot of you, if some of you are using the government, utilizing the government levy or so on, you might know of, existing employees, taking on apprenticeships, people in their 30s, 40s, seasoned in the workplace, taking on apprenticeships. So we paired them with mentors, but those mentors didn't need to get lots and lots of support and training, because these existing employees were already well seasoned employees in the workplace. Yeah, if you get my drift. So again, it all depends on that target group. Whereas if you go all the way to level 5 at the top of that map, you've got new apprentices, 16 to 18-year-olds coming into the business. Some of you taking on Kickstart, people from the Kickstart program, for instance. Now, these are really young, completely new to the workplace. So the mentors for these people need to be really kind of trained up, in mentoring skills, really given the support, and giving that program more support, because those people definitely will, really benefit from the mentoring. So we had varying levels of, when I talk about department mentor, it was just within a certain area. They wanted to learn from their senior leaders, and then we had like a graduate program as well. So these were guys who were out of the university, and we just paired them up with, again, respective level. But if you look at the toolkits at the bottom left hand side, yeah, so we had varying levels for the different mentors in those pools, but we also had across the board some consistency in that program. We did 6 monthly mentoring circles and networking. I did some support calls one-to-one with them. We had a mentoring resource hub. We utilized Mind Tools. We used lots of mentoring stuff from Mind Tools, and we said, mentors across the board for all the talent pools. If you want to go and have a look at resources, we've got this special resource Mind Tools for you, and we've really structured things out for you as well. Okay, so that's how we kind of went about that. But that's all a bit complicated. I understand some of you, if you've not kind of started up a whole program, or you're in like smaller organizations, that's a bit kind of like, okay, that's biggish. So let's move on to the next one, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill down into one of the programs I did. So in the finance area, we did a program where we put we got in new apprentices. So we got a handful of them. Yeah, so 5 to 6 of them coming in, and we put them through different different finance areas, so that at the end of it, they would have learned up the whole finance function. And I'll it was a 3-year program. They tied it into an AAT qualification apprenticeship, in that whole 3 years. And then they did the 6-month rotations in each of the finance areas. And in this situation, we mentored them with each 6 months, each finance area, they had a mentor in that area to learn up functional skills. But throughout the 3 years, they had one other mentor that was consistent throughout the 3 years, that would help them to navigate the workplace, that would help them to navigate personal and professional development. So you see how we're kind of hitting them up, but depending on what we wanted to get from the program. Yeah, I'll cover this a bit more when we go through the steps. So just wanted to share these 2 examples. Let's crack on, shall we? Let's go into the steps now. Okay, so I just want to say, I've pulled from my own humble personal experience, and I've also, for your benefit, reviewed some of the best practices out there before the workshop today. And I've seen that actually there are some really consistent steps across the board, regardless of where you are from, what you're doing. There are some consistent step-by-step processes that people can follow to set up a mentoring program, regardless of the size of your organization and so on. So I put together a diagram for your easy use. So this is the mentoring program life cycle according to May, and this is the world premiere of the diagram. I've never shared this with anyone. You're the first ones to see it, and I do very much hope you like it. Okay, but it's just a kind of to put it into a one-pager, so it's a bit easier to kind of see it all in one page. So in general, there are 4 stages to this. The first stage is the root. Okay, letting the idea land and take root. The next one, right? Carry out the idea further. water, nurture, nourish that idea and let it grow. Okay, so that's grow. So we've got root, we've got grow. What's the third one then? Okay, and then we've got the fruit, which is, you keep monitoring and looking out for the fruit of your labor, or the results of your labor. And then last but not least, this goes back to the seed. You continue that propagation and you're giving back to develop that wider culture. So there's 4 steps. And what I'm going to do is I will focus more on the first 2 steps, because I think that's what's really pertinent for all of you in terms of kind of, how you set up that program. And then if time permits, then I will kind of then summarize the remaining, step 3 and 4 as well. So depending on how we get on with time today as well. Okay, brilliant. Okay, shall we move on to the first step then? Fantastic. Okay, perfect. And again, any of you, I mean, I do see that certain bits have come up on chat. We will see if we can kind of cover that, and also Nikki or Lucy or anyone else in the team, if you see something that's really pressing come up, please feel free to kind of throw it up at me. Otherwise, we can kind of do a bit more around the whole Q&A bit at the end of the session as well. Okay. So, Ruth, right, main thing here would be really clear, first and foremost, on the outcomes you want to achieve from setting up this mentoring program. Okay, what's the main business need? What's the main purpose? What's the main reason you would like to do this? Keep this really clear and keep this at the forefront of your mind when you're designing and when you're running the program and when you're monitoring the results of the program as well. Because I think once you've got that in place, then it's something that kind of really solidifies it, and it's something that you can keep moving towards. You don't want to kind of start something up just for the sake of it and then just it being aimless. So what is it? What is it you're trying to address? Is it because there's low employee engagement? Is it because there are talented people leaving, so you want to have more of a retention? Is it because there are skills gaps in teams and you want them to kind of cover, learn up and kind of have a more well-rounded view of a certain topic? So the finance program I talked about earlier, the main reason we set up that mentoring program was a succession reason. People were leaving and there was no one to take over those positions, right? So the CFO came to me and said, we need to build something up that's a great succession pool of talent, so that if anyone leaves, bam, we've got someone there to fill up the position. So it was really, really clear what we wanted. We wanted a ready pool of people to really fill up positions when people leave, and we want these people to stay as well. Okay, so so that was the main clarity there. For you, you could be, if you're taking someone from a kickstart in, it could be what do you want from mentoring this kickstart person? Do you want them to learn the skill of navigating the workplace and learn the functional skills, be a success in the role, possibly a permanent hire as well, so so that you've got a good talent pool for your business? Or do you or your employees find that you've got skills gaps and you want to learn from each other? You want to have that internal knowledge transfer? Or do you think someone in the team has potential to be a leader or wants to develop their leadership skill? Have to think about all this, and then kind of be really clear of that reason. Okay, so you could even have a sheet of paper now, start writing down, what do you think would be a main business need for you to actually set up the program? It's so important to know why you want to set it up. Okay, and then once that's done, have a think about what will success look like. How do you know you've achieved that purpose that you've set out? So important, isn't it? Because we could say, I want that purpose, and then just leave it at that. Be really clear. How will you know if you've actually achieved it? And in this case, put realistic, achievable outcomes as well, right? So once you know what you want to do, once you've kind of listed out the outcomes, the goals, the KPIs, then design your program steered towards that. So you've got your current situation, that's point A, and then you've got your goal, point B, and then your program needs to be designed to close that gap up to get you from A to B, really. So in my example with that finance program, we wanted a ready pool of talent with the right knowledge and with the right behaviors that fit in with the organization as well. So to me, my what my success looks like would be a ready pool of 5 or 6 people who are ready to just jump into roles. They've got all the knowledge and they are well aware of how to navigate the workplace, and they understand the culture of the organization. So that's why I built that program where they could rotate in different areas of finance. So anytime a position opens up, they've already done that area because they've covered all the different areas. So we did this, and then I ran workshops for them on company values, on the behaviors, on the exemplary behaviors you want to see. And the mentoring program really supported this. So if you remember me saying, we paired them up with a mentor in the functional side of it. So every 6 months, whatever finance area they were in, they were paired up with a mentor to show them the ropes, the day-to-day tasks in that finance area. But throughout the 3 years of the program, we had a consistent mentor for them as well, that they could just go to in terms of personal development, professional development, navigating the workplace, all of that stuff. So we did that. So what does this mean for you? So if you're taking someone from Kickstart on, for instance, what will success look like? What will you aim for that to look like? You want for them to be able to do the role without any support because they've properly learned it up. You want them to work permanently for the organization at the end of it. So what is it? If if that's your purpose, if that's your success measure, then you pair them up with someone in the organization who can teach them the relevant skill and show them how to navigate the workplace. Or is it to increase personal or professional development? um, do you want for people to easily get promotions to leadership positions? Do you want for a job to be able to get done if someone is off poorly, or God forbid gets hit by a bus tomorrow? Yeah, so the whole internal knowledge transfer. So then what you do is then you pair people up, with a mentor who has the experience in that relevant area. So when you chunk it down and you look at it simply, it's pretty much just that, isn't it? So have a think about that and then design your program accordingly. And I would say a quick win that you could list as part of a success measure, right, is what sort of goals the mentors and mentees list at the start of the relationship as well. Really important to ask the mentee what their goals are, but then also ask the mentor what they might want to get from it. They might want to build up their leadership capability, for instance. Get them to set those goals at the start, and then you can then have a look at measuring that throughout and at the end to see if the program has helped them to hit that mark. So that's a quick win, looking at mentor-mentee goals as well. Okay, we'll go into a bit more detail around how you design the program in the next few slides. But for now, I want to cover the third point, which is a really important point, which we've talked about already, which is gaining buy-in. And I've talked about gaining that buy-in from every level. So let's talk about the senior level first. Yeah, it's vital that these mentoring programs, for them to survive, you need that buy-in from the top. So it's really useful to have a senior sponsor, someone at the top to vouch for it, and their commitment and support will help to kind of influence others to accept and support the program as well. So in my case, it was really easy. The CFO approached me. She really wanted it. So she was a really big advocate of it already. And because she was championing it from the start, all the line managers, all the mentors knew the importance of it, of kind of following through with it for her sake, really. Now in your case, you might be the top kahuna already, which is then done, dusted. Convince yourself of the benefits and then champion it, right? But if you're not, and if you need to convince someone, we talked about the benefits earlier, yeah, the beehive, cover that, talk that through. But I would say, think about what your SMT care about. What does this, what do your senior management team care about? And you need to pick someone to really champion it, someone that you've convinced and they really champion it and they really believe in it as well. So think about what matters to them, what they care about, what are the top level business priorities that they need to be achieving, and then tie it into that. What you could do as well, flip it around and go, perhaps show the impact of what would happen if we didn't do it. Yeah, that's something else to think about. Oh, look, everyone else in the field is doing it. Here's all the success stories. We're the ones like will be left behind. Like, other organizations are going to be more attractive, when they hire people because they've got things like that going. What's happening for us then? Show the impact. If you don't do it, create that sense of urgency and need for it as well. And what you could do then is, share external organization success stories to convince them as well. So, just Google it. Honestly, that's the answer to everything, isn't it? Just have a look, loads of success stories out there, share, and then, pick what's happened within your industry, for instance. And if nothing's happened in your industry, go, we're going to spearhead this. We're going to show everyone else how it's done. And we're going to be the success story in our area. So loads you can do in that space. Okay, we've talked about high level. Yeah, we've talked about senior management team. It's so important to get that buy-in from the people who are actually going to be in the program as well, isn't it? I've talked about how the benefits are for mentors as well as it is for mentees. What you need to do is identify, there's an acronym over here, WIIFM. Anyone got any idea what WIIFM means? No, I see some shaking heads. Yeah, I don't blame you because it's an acronym I've done myself. So that's only what I know in my head. So it stands for what's in it for me. Really important to have a think about what's in it for each individual. What are the key reasons and motivations for these people? And then how do you tie that into the programs that piques their interest? Yeah. So in my case, I said already the CFO was championing the program, but I found that with the line managers and with the mentors, I knew there was still a level of convincing. Some of them was like, oh my God, like this is so annoying. We've got to bleeding do this because the CFO said we have to. And you really don't want that. You don't want people to be kind of forced onto it I don't like using that word, but it almost felt like that had to happen, wasn't it? Because the CFO really wanted it. So again, I revisited the benefits. I tried to get a gauge of what the mentor group was like by speaking to some people there who were key influencers in the mentor group. And I looked at their motivations and then I sold it to them from their point of view. So I knew some of them wanted to build up leadership capability. And I said, do you know what? Yeah, this is a perfect example for you to start practicing that. Again, this program is going to happen whether you like it or not. You've been cherry picked as a mentor. It's a great opportunity for you to build up some of these areas in your development, really, by taking someone under your wing. It's going to happen anyway. Why don't you just make the best use of it, really? And so back to you again, and in your organizations, what do your staff want? What do they care about? What are their motivations? What do they want to develop? Conduct that research, do your one-to-ones with them, look at mentoring benefits and tie that in for them and sell it to them from that perspective. Put yourself in their shoes and think of how you can then communicate to buy-in. So that's my main tip for that, right? And I would say, I know in reality things might not be as wonderful and rosy. Yeah. So I have experienced those challenges and those barriers. People might still be resistant. They might say things like, it's not part of my job, lack of time, I don't want to, and so on. So with this, I just go back, like sell the benefits, tie into the motivations, the what's in it for me, talk about success stories. You could, in some organizations, tie it into reward and recognition. There's a lot to be said for that. So, it could be awards. It could be a little voucher for Just Eat, for instance, for, someone who is the best mentor in that program, for instance. So little bits like that, just kind of as a carrot. You might need to do a bit of coaxing at the start, but I'm guarantee you, once people are in it, once they've done it, then they might become your biggest advocate. Honestly, when they realize the benefits they're getting, and then you could then use these people who have lived through that experience to come in and speak to the next group of people you're trying to convince, for instance. It's that gift that keeps on giving. Okay, so just kind of get that ball rolling, really. Okay, if we could go on to the next slide. I want to share that this is a slide that I used to try to kind of convince mentors and to kind of share with mentors and mentees what sort of benefits they get from mentoring. So the mentor benefits, like I've said, they develop leadership, coaching skills. It encourages them to have self-reflection because they're, discussing things and they're sharing that experience with the mentee. They get that satisfaction of helping someone develop, fulfill their potential. There's an opportunity to give back. There's also, right, and this is something that some mentors they're not aware of. They suddenly kind of have that light bulb moment where, like, hang on a minute, I'm an expert. I've been asked to do this because I know my area well. So there's some pride that comes in there as well. And that shared learning with the mentee can result in brilliant new ideas for the both of them. And I want to bring your attention to. Oops. Does someone have question? Okay, no, okay, you've gone back on mute.
Them,
Oops.
to understand that the report.
Oh, okay, you've gone back on mute. Okay, sorry, I just wondered if there was a question there.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure there. So Vicky's got some questions in some suggestions or questions, I suppose. She says suggestions for outcomes kickstarts could include versatility, working with supervision, confidence, personality test have been talking about as well. I don't know what we think about personality tests. That's quite a good one to come back to.
Yeah, perfect. So that's great actually. With personality tests and stuff, we have done that before with some groups of mentors, mentees. We've picked the group of mentees, we picked the group of mentors, and then we got them to do some of that, and then we got them to actually even discuss that when kind of in their first, second meetings, kind of to see how their personalities would jive with each other. So actually, it's not something it is something that you could do, and that could be quite beneficial. And you'll see I'll cover that.
Some kind of template to work from to how.
Galaxy A40, right? So you have to just keep going on mute then, because we can hear some of that background sound that comes in. But okay, so we will carry on. Another thing that mentors could get is that reverse mentoring. Like I said before, it's that two-way learning. I personally have experienced this. So I personally been a mentor to a couple of apprentices that have come through the program. And I would say that towards the end, I initially thought, oh gosh, and I put my hands up. I was a bit like, gosh, I've got to spend like half an hour with someone, and I'm sorry, like I was kind of in that group of barriers, even though I was trying to run it, to be honest. So I admit that. But then I went into it, and I found even from the first meeting that I was like, I got hooked from it. And then as we carried on those meetings, I started looking forward to those meetings. And then my mentee started teaching me because she was a millennial. So I started learning lots of tech tips from her. Got lots of technology tips from her. So it was brilliant. I found it really energizing. It refreshes my own view of my work and so on. So there was loads, okay? And then obviously, the mentee benefits in loads of ways as well. It improves their self-awareness, confidence. They identify what their development needs are. They get an action, get to work towards an action plan with their mentor. Self-reliance, self-confidence, learning how to navigate the workplace, opportunity to learn from a role model, advice, information, they get encouragement, they get support. Sometimes a mentor might not know certain things, and they can signpost the mentee to someone else. So it opens up new worlds as well, and offers that safe environment and a sounding board, really. So tons. I could go on all day, like I said. So okay, right, let's go on to the next one. Okay, so I remember I said earlier, there's some things to think about when you're designing the program. Here are all the things. Okay, so first and foremost, let's talk about, you've looked at the main reason you want the program. You usually identify the mentees first before you kind of start to pick out the mentors. You identify the purpose. Like, so for instance, with my program, the purpose was that succession planning. We knew that the target group was going to be the new apprentices that come in. And then we kind of thought about the people in the functional area and outside the area who could be mentors to them. Is it inclusive or exclusive? So inclusive would be everyone in the organization gets to take part. So in Esther right now, we've got a mentoring program, but the way we do it was we got people to put their hands up, step forward and volunteer to be mentors. And we had quite a number doing that. And what we got them to do was fill up why you want to be a mentor and what are the areas that you feel that you can mentor in. So they filled all of that up. And now we've got a database of mentors. So anytime anyone in the organization wants a mentor, they go to that database, they have a look at all the different mentors on that, what those skill sets are, and then they pick someone to be a mentor and they start that relationship. So that's one way to do it if it's an inclusive one. In the finance program I ran, it was exclusive because there were only the few apprentices. So we cherry picked, and we cherry picked based on personality matches as well. So back to that question earlier that you read out in the chat, Nikki. So that's quite an interesting point. Voluntary or assigned? Voluntary, always better. Okay, if you want successful results, you want people to sign up who are committed to it, who are already bought into that. But if it's assigned, like in my case, like I said, those mentors were assigned, I then kind of looked at what their motivations were and looked at benefits and then tried to tie it in for them. What's that sign up process? Whatever that sign up process is, be really clear about and include what that qualifying criteria is for the mentor. And this ties into what the purpose of your program is, isn't it? And what you want the mentees to gain from it. So what sort of mentors are you looking for from that? So what's that process like? In my case, they were informed about it because they already cherry picked people. So there wasn't necessarily a sign up process, so to speak. They were informed, and I'll share later. I did like training for them and all of that stuff. And then how will you communicate this? So in your communication, what you could do is you could get, like I said before, people who have mentored or who have got the benefits of mentoring. Some of you put into the chat, you've been mentoring interns and it's been fantastic, right? Get people who are, already kind of sold on that to kind of sell it to others. Yeah, get those early adopters. They can go back and sell it. Whatever it is, when you communicate it, make sure people know what it is, what are the details, what is expected of them, what sort of time commitment even, and then kind of tie in those benefits. And then think about what medium you'll use. Will it be an initial email? And then will you have drop-in sessions? Will you have a virtual tour of the benefits? All of that. So the way I did that, because we had to cherry pick people already and they were there grudgingly, whether they wanted to or not, I just called them in, sold to them based on the benefits. Again, what I said earlier, it is happening. Let's see what you can get from it. Now let's have a look at your individual kind of needs and let's see how we can tie some of this in. And then how long the relationship will be, that's dependent on your KPI, isn't it? It's what's the purpose and what are your success measures? And for us, the apprentices were tied into a 3-year apprenticeship program and they got an AAT qualification at the end of it. So the mentor was tied into them for the 3 years, but for the functional side, then we had every 6 months a different business area, a different finance area mentor. Matching participants, this is the one that really a lot of people are like, God, okay, how do we do this? Ideally, some choice should be allowed, as the most successful matching occurs in relationships where both parties feel like they have had a choice in it. Some self-selection methods that you could have a think about was, what I talked about in Esther, where the mentee goes in, they have a look, and then they say, oh, I want this person. And then they start that relationship. And the mentor can also see if they kind of jive with the mentee as well. Another way, right, and this is a bit more of an innovative one. I've not personally had a chance to try it out, but you could if you wanted to, speed dating. Yeah. So you've got the group of mentees and you've got the group of relevant mentors with relevant experience, but it's like, okay, who gets paired with whom? You want to see if they've got that personality match, and you've maybe not done personality profiling, put them in a room, get them to do speed dating, whoever ticks off on someone, then you see if there's lovely matches to be had. In a lot of organizations, we might not have that luxury and we might need to do the matching on our end, in which case then, personality matching would be great if you did some profiling if you wanted to. Determine what that selection criteria is, and then look at your mentor's background, skills, experience, interests, and so on, and then you can assign accordingly. In my case, the mentors were selected by the CFO because she knew people in her department, and she kind of already had a sense of what their personalities were, obviously. And then from the interviews of the apprentices, when they were recruited, they all had a really good sense of kind of what the needs and personality and motivations of the apprentice were, and then they kind of matched it accordingly. The relationships all just went really, really well, to be honest. So, it's not to say that that won't work, right? You could absolutely just do that. Yeah. How will you monitor progress and how will you report success? Those 2 points are tied into your KPI. So again, what are your success measures? And the way we monitored progress throughout the 3-year program was we had pulse surveys. So we sent the surveys out to the apprentices, to the mentors, and the questions were based on how satisfied are you with the mentor or mentee, or with the relationship, or with the structure and the guidance that we've put in place for you on the program. Is there anything that we can improve on? So we kept putting out those pulse surveys every 6 months or every quarter. My apprentices on that program, we also did evaluations for them. At the end of every 6 months, when they finished a certain finance area, we did an evaluation on how they progressed on learning up that key finance skill, and how were they progressing in terms of the behaviors that we wanted to see as well. So those were all measurements for us to see how we were progressing towards that, that end goal, really. And the way we reported success, the CFO wanted a report, but also at the end of every 6 months, I held a group learning event where we got all the apprentices together, all the mentors together, all the line managers, the CFO was there as well. And these apprentices got to share. Each of them did a presentation, stood in front of everyone, and shared what they learned from the 6 months. And this kind of really built up their exposure and their presentation skills as well. So that's how we kind of, reported that success, so that everyone kind of knew the success that was going on, and kind of could see and were motivated by the progress that they were all making. So that's kind of some of the stuff that we did, really. So we have come to the end of the root bit of it. Any questions from anyone on the root phase? Anything coming up in the chat?
I think I was just saying, reflecting, so knowing a lot of the businesses here, would you recommend then maybe you start sort of small and focus, sort of think about your main purpose, what you want to achieve,
Yes.
what success looks like for you, but start off with a very sort of maybe a small group?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say if it's the first time you're doing it, I mean, it's really ambitious if you want to do it organization wide, but I would vouch for, let's do a little pilot in this little area. Let's see what we learn from it. Let's gain our confidence. Let's build our confidence up. And then we can even, we don't have to then go organization wide. We could then spread it out to the next area and do a second pilot, and build your way up that way. And you learn, because what I'm sharing today, right, is based on what I've learned as I've moved along, and there is no one size fitting all. I'm just sharing tips here. You've got to pick what's right for your organization.
We've got about 15 minutes left. Is everybody happy to sort of continue on? Vicky asked about your progress survey, so maybe that's something we could talk about outside of this, May. If there was some like some tools would be great. Maybe you and I can talk about that afterwards, and we can design some to share with people today that as the sort of basic toolkit. And we have talked about sending some stuff out afterwards, and chain of mentoring someone's talked about as well, manager mentoring aspiring young team leader, so having someone who's mentoring the mentor, I suppose, in a way, as manager mentoring aspiring young team leader to mentor a new recruit like an apprentice, so having like a chain of mentoring, I suppose.
Absolutely we did that as well in our organization. So there is a no holds barred. You can experiment with lots of different ways. Just pick it as we are experimenting, adapting. We're kind of just learning what works for us, really.
Lots of questions I've had from businesses as well, like that aren't here today, but I know some that I've been talking to that are doing Kickstart or apprenticeships or whatever, is also they're really small SMEs. They don't necessarily have a massive team to like get lots of different mentors, but you know, there's also the possibility that you could look outside your
Outside.
organization, couldn't you?
Absolutely. Yep. And sometimes you might find that if you've got those skills gap, none of you in the organization have that relevant skill, experience, whatever. So there's always that kind of going wider, going further as well. Absolutely. And that's a really key point. So if it's okay, could we go on to the next slide? I'll try to do the next bit and finish that up, and then we can start kind of going into more questions with all of you. So with Grow, it was more around, let's go to the first point there. Yep, it was, launch the program once you've designed it, and it should provide, it should provide standard training across the board for the mentor and mentee. It should cover things like what's the purpose, objectives, what's the process, roles and responsibilities of the mentor mentee, what's the contracting going to be like, agreeing expectations and boundaries, confidentiality, skills and techniques of how do you mentor, and then having the mentee understand what their responsibility is. So in my case, I kicked off a meeting with the apprentices and with the mentors. And with the mentors, obviously, I did really rigorous kind of training around mentor skills. With the mentees, I got them to kind of really understand their responsibility. And a lot of the time we say the onus is on the mentee. So the mentor could book the initial few meetings, but the mentee needs to be the one to kind of initiate the next few meetings, and they've got to be, listing out what their goals are coming in, because they are coming in to pick the brains of the mentor, for instance. So they should then, kind of take the driving seat for that relationship. So it's things like that. And then next bit then, guidance and support. So without structure, guidance, inspiration, all of that stuff, and reminding people why they signed up, things might drop off, things might lose steam, which is why you've got to keep watering, nurturing, nourishing. So what you've got to do is monitor the structure you've put in place. So the agreements, the expectations, all that stuff, monitor what you've put in place, see if things are working for the mentor and mentee, and adapt to revise or to fit needs if you need to, and put in these support mechanisms to kind of bring it together. So for instance, in my case, with the roadmap that I had before, we got our mentors together to talk about the challenges they might be facing. We did skills top-ups for them. We did 15-minute support calls with them. We kind of signposted them to the resource hub again. And then on to the final point there, inspiration. To keep that motivation high, we kept mailing out TED Talks, and you could do your SHAT Talks, really, Richard. Sorry, it could be, I can't remember if I got your name right, Richard, but yeah, okay, whoever said SHAT Talks earlier. And then you could bring in guest speakers. So that's where some of the external stuff can come in. Guest speakers could come into your mentors, talk about a business topic, and you could send emails with those links to like the TED Talks and the podcast and all of that. Just keep it going, keep it at the forefront of people's minds. Next slide, please. So next slide is an example of a structure I put in place for the program. So I just said, frequency, you could have it every 2 weeks, you could have it once a month, have it more of an informal sort of basis. I shared with them. So like what Nikki was talking about, I had a mentoring log, so the mentee could kind of put in what their goals were. And then, at the end of every meeting, they could kind of say, oh, okay, so what are my actions coming away from this meeting? And then they can revisit those actions at the next meeting. And then we kind of put in that feedback mechanism as well. Next slide, please. So we did mentor training, and the mentor training covered things like, okay, what are useful traits for a mentor, but also talk about, what's a not so good mentor. We talked about questioning skills, listening, feedback skills, the responsibilities. But more recently, on to the next slide. And if you could get all of that stuff to appear as well, Lucy. More recently, we covered things like the personality matches. We talked about unconscious bias. We talked about generation gap. So how do you, if you're pairing someone in the organization who's a bit older with a millennial, how do you get that to work? So, and then we got our older generation ones to actually watch some videos and understand why millennials struggle in the workforce. So then it helps them then to kind of cater those conversations better with the millennials, for instance. Okay, and then so that's pretty much the grow phase. So we've done that now. So I guess any questions around that phase on how you can continue to water and support and grow the program?
Somebody's asked, Chris asked about example of external mentors, but I think maybe that's something we can
You
sort
can
of pick
take,
up,
yeah,
Chris.
outside separately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it depends on the level you're looking for, isn't it? But
Yeah.
we can pick that up, Chris.
Yeah. And I've seen someone saying, as a mentor, what would be your 3 key things to take into a mentoring session? Now, at the training, we did kind of say to our mentors, here's a list of questions you can ask at the first kind of instance. So it could be things like go in, and you don't have to go right in and go, what are your personal and professional development goals and things like that. That would probably scare the mentee off. Go in and just first meeting, I would say, importantly, build the rapport. Find out, like, just what the person's like, to be honest. Just go, oh, what are some of your interests, and just have like a regular conversation, like how you would be if you were starting up a friendship. That would be my advice. And then you could then kind of then understand and explore a bit more kind of what their personal, professional kind of motivations and goals are going to be, and help them to shape that as well, actually. Okay, right, next slide. Okay, if we could just have everything come up on this slide, that would be fantastic, Lucy. Thank you. So main thing here, keep monitoring. We talked about those pulse surveys, those evaluations. So important to celebrate the wins, okay? Because you want people to be boasted by the progress that you're all making. Support and appreciation can go a really long way. So if your Kickstart person or the apprentice wins an award or gets top marks in an exam, celebrate that, recognize that, even communicate that to the rest of the business if you fancy. If they've completed a work project that value adds to the business, communicate that, put that into the newsletter, that email that you send out to everyone. You could even, like I said earlier, you could nominate mentors for mentor awards. You could give gifts or recognition to the mentors or to the top mentors for the great work they're doing. Support and recognition, this go a really long way. And then keep marketing that to the rest of the company. So, we celebrated at our group learning events, we had awards and gifts, we wrote articles in our company newsletter. Other departments started to want to consider the same program, okay? But measure that success. So important to measure, whether it's throughout and also at the end of it. If you haven't quite hit the KPIs, don't beat yourself up. You are experimenting and adapting. Also remember to look at the outcomes that the mentors and mentees are getting from it. What were the goals they set at the start? How close are they to achieving that goals, and have they achieved those goals? So keep looking at that. Okay, so that's the fruit bit. And then last but not least, it's the seed bit. So can we go on to the next slide? This is when you come to the end of it. You like to look at, kind of, okay, let's have a look at how things were going. Let's get feedback from the mentors. Were they satisfied? Would they mentor again? What could be improved? What was the biggest challenge? And then you will learn so much from it for the next round. Market whatever successes you've had. Check the appetite. If it's been a great success, you will get signups flooding in. Yeah. So we shared the success, and the mentors vouched for how wonderful it was for them. And then we had people clamoring to be mentors the next round. So again, do that. If your program has been really successful as well, you'll see some really lovely things, like my apprentices continued those relationships with their mentors well past the 3-year mark. So that's how established it was for them, those relationships. The other thing was, then we got those apprentices to become mentors for the next round. So like what you were saying, layer after layer, and the propagation, it kind of keeps giving back into it in sustainability, isn't it? Make it stick, make it part of the culture, expand it into other areas once you're confident from the pilot. And that's pretty much it. So I think that gives us about 5 or 6 minutes for some Q&A, if that's okay. I'm so sorry. I do get kind of swept up by the flow of it, and I'm so passionate about it. It just happens. If we could just go on to this, go through this slide, go on to the next slide. I just want to say, no one size fits all. You have to see what fits your organization, and find what's the best path for your organization. So what other questions are coming up now then, actually? I would like to see if we can get to it.
Well, I I put an idea in which it sort of came from sort of having conversation recently, and then listening to you, May, and thinking, well, because it is difficult for SMEs. Maybe there is some kind of cross collaborative kind of network we could set up
across, yes,
and bring because often you don't. because you don't have, you could bring in those sort of mentors from across different SMEs, and maybe that's some, if people are in our Kickstart cohort or if they're in our Workforce of Future cohort, we could do that, but definitely. But I'm just even thinking wider than that. It's like you could have an SME mentor. I don't know if anything like that exists in the region. I'll have to have a look into it.
You could absolutely spearhead it, Nikki. And
Yeah.
I think, the fact that all of you are already here, you're all in this network, that's like ready-made, isn't it? It's always something like that just needs to be exploited if it is possible, honestly.
Yeah.
So.
I just wanted to assure everyone, because I know it is a huge topic and we could,
Exactly.
there's so much we could cover, but I just wanted to assure people that this was today to go, right, okay, this is a starter. This will be recorded. And you can access it. The slides will be shared. And also what we'll do is we'll pull together some key documents that you think might be helpful for you. So please let us know what key documents as well structures might help you, because what we can do is pull together like a toolkit of resources that people can access and we can share in the community. Was there any questions that anyone had for May?
We had a few things come up in the chat, didn't we? But if we haven't mentioned it, if you could just go off mute and just kind of just quickly shout it out now, that would be really useful, because there's a lot of stuff in the chat, really.
Hi May, how you doing? My name's Jules from Be On Board. I thought everything you shared is very inspirational. Some great stuff there. Nikki nailed one of the challenges for us as a small SME. We're a micro business, but with big ambitions and aspirations, and dealing with major issues around inclusion and diversity for organizations. So there were just a couple of things, and one, you touched on it a little bit, was the mentoring for the mentor, and what sort of, and you could say around it, but also really around sort of challenges we might face or you've faced and overcome, and that's just it really quickly. Thank you.
Okay, so challenges I face with mentors then, is that right? I just want to make sure I want to...
Well, no, mentors themselves. So, and it could go both ways, but if there's any challenges that we can expect to face as a mentor, and if there's any ways that, you can overcome them, or you faced in your program yourself and maybe a fix that you came across.
I think, like I said, one of the main things was just getting that buy-in. But once people kind of started those relationships and they kind of really, jumped in, they kind of could see the benefits for themselves. As a mentor, I think, like I said, in my mind, I had that bit of a barrier. I think with a lot of you as well, with the pre-survey, there was stuff coming out about time and how much time can we afford. And in my organization, one of the key things we faced, and this was the wider organization, was mentors really just not wanting to be mentors and saying that it wasn't part of the job description. And I think part of it was the fear as well. I think, they were kind of worried about whether they were going to be good enough mentors for a mentee. So in that case, there was some kind of pairings that just had to happen because they were the only subject matter expert on that bit. And they grudgingly took it on, but I could absolutely see how they were benefiting from it. And they came back and said, thank you for this. So it's a matter of really getting people to get their feet in. If you've got anyone, if you've personally even experienced that, just to share your experience as well. And sometimes it might be that they just need to kind of be pushed into it first, and then you can kind of monitor and have that chat with them. But I would say with some of this stuff, there's always that 1%, 3% who will just never get it. And you can't beat yourself up over it. If you've tried, that sort of thing. So that's what I had to do. And in the challenges I faced being a mentor was the whole kind of just really kind of building that rapport, so important. I think with all of these relationships, there needs to be a clause where people can have an out if they want to, if they find that their personalities don't match, for instance, and then you could kind of go and rematch. So it's a great question. There's just a lot to it as well. So I'm hoping I kind of hit them out with 1 or 2 points here. I'm really sorry, Jules. I hope that has helped. Fantastic. Sarah, you've got your hands up.
Yeah, just coming back to Jules, we're just about to get another 3 interns at work. We've had 8 already. So we obviously we do the mentoring there with them. But I also work as a family support mentor. or family support worker for Home Start, and the process is very, very similar for sort of getting everybody on board with it, and it's a very, very sort of similar. It's a mentoring program, but in a domestic situation. And the most important thing is to get to know people, is to spend that time building the rapport so they trust you.
That's it.
And you start to build up an understanding of what their skills are and where they want to go, and doing it at their pace a lot of the time. Sometimes you sort of, if you've got a 6-month program, you've got to fit everything in, but you might need to pick up more time with them, or it might be that they are streets ahead of where you expected them to be, and you only need to spend a little bit of time, but understanding them, their motivations and their personalities, absolutely
Crucial,
key
isn't it?
to anything that you do around mentoring. And the more time that you spend doing that, and the more focused you are on them rather than what that piece of paper says, the more you're going to get out of them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. That's so lovely. Thank you. It's great to hear it from someone who's kind of experienced it and has got the benefits from it as well. That's lovely. Okay, Nikki, I think we're up to time now, so I don't know if you want to keep anyone else. I mean, if anyone else has got questions, you're welcome to stay on with me. I've got the next 5-10 minutes if you like. Even if Nikki and the rest of you have to run off, that's fine. I could still, have that chat if you want.
Yeah, I'm afraid that I have to go. Otherwise, I would love to have sat and chatted a bit more about it, because it's a vast subject. But I just want to say thank you very much, May, for today, for coming in and doing this. I know it was a big brief that I gave you, and a challenge.
And a little limited time.
Thank you. It's been brilliant, and I think really inspiring. I hope everyone's found it as inspiring as I have. Because I think this is essential, but it's then what we can do next. And I think actually as Business West, we can do lots to support that. And I'll be going back to May to sort of pick apart some of the questions today. We've kept a copy of the chat. We've saved the chat, so we'll go through all of that. And we'll send out to everyone the slides and the recording. And also, I'm going to put together like just a top tips from today and go. I've got a big list of actions actually. So thank you everybody. If anyone wants to email us at skills@businesswest with any other questions or follow up or ideas, please do. But yeah, thank you. I'm going to have to go because I've got another meeting, unfortunately,